I know a few good stories. They take place in a corner of America that might seem familiar, yet still manages to surprise. The settings are spectacular, the characters compelling, the action exciting, the plot lines unpredictable. I'm Tom Richardson. Join me as I explore New England's great outdoors, from Candlewood Lake, Connecticut to Caribou, Maine, from the beaches of Cape Cod to the peaks of New Hampshire's White Mountains. The stories are waiting. Let's live them on Explore New England. Explore New England is brought to you by your New England Ford dealers, your local REI Co-op. REI believes a life outside is fundamental to a life well lived. Geico. See how much you could save on more than just car insurance. Visit newengland.com. And Camping World. Additional funding and support for this episode was provided by Bangor Savings Bank. You never forget how to ride a bicycle, or so the saying goes. Perhaps, but when you throw in roots, rocks, sand, mud, logs, ditches, and steep banks, you're asking a lot from this particular form of muscle memory. Mountain biking is an exciting way to experience the outdoors while challenging yourself physically. Add beautiful surroundings to the mix, and you can see why the sport has such a large and passionate following. No matter what your skill level, you can find a trail that fits your abilities in New Hampshire's North Conway area, on the doorstep of the vast recreational playground known as the White Mountains. And if you need gear and advice, you'll find both at the REI Co-op store on Route 302. REI Co-op offers its members great deals on mountain bike rental gear, including bikes, helmets, pads, and gloves. And the stores are staffed by experts like Mark Sapila, who can get you outfitted and show you where to go.
I got into mountain biking maybe about 5 years ago. At the time I was just looking for a summer activity, and I tend to gravitate towards gravity-oriented sports like skiing, whitewater boating. Biking was just kind of another activity that kind of excites me and can get me out to faraway places relatively quickly and easily. And I'm not really one for hiking up things unless I can have like a nice, enjoyable, gravity-fed, fun ride down, and biking kind of filled that for me. This is our DRT 3.1. This is the bike we're going to be using today. The DRT 3.1 is the Co-op's full suspension, kind of mid-travel trail bike offering. It's made for kind of cross-country, also with the capability of kind of getting into some rowdier descents. For a drivetrain, it's got what's called a one-by system. So you have a single chain ring up front here, and then one derailleur in the back. It kind of simplifies things. The nice thing about the air suspension is it's really fine-tunable. By either adding air or taking air out, you can really kind of customize the way the bike feels, and then also customize it to the rider's weight. So when you come in to rent a bike before you go out, we'll go over kind of how all the different controls work, as well as setting up what's called SAG, which is essentially just how far the suspension sits into its travel when the rider's just kind of static and not doing anything. So we'll help you set that up. It requires a shock pump that we'll do here at the shop before we get out on the trail.
With our bikes ready to go, Mike and I headed for nearby Echo Lake State Park, one of many beginner trails in the North Conway area.
Ride at your own pace. If you see an obstacle or something that you're uncomfortable with, don't be afraid to stop the bike, hop off, take a look at it. If it's not something that you feel comfortable doing, just walk around it and pick up on the other side. So we're riding along on the trail. We come up here, I see that there's a big change in trail geometry. We got some rocks, a dip, a quick rise, and then it looks like the trail kind of banks off to the right and heads down this hill. First thing I kind of notice when I come down to here is I start to have a couple different line options. So you have this right line here that sends me over a big rise. There's a rock to worry about. There's a sudden drop with a root. But if I look over to the left, there's this nice, smooth, left-hand gradual turn. Nice sloping left-hand turn. We come in here, we notice there's some rocks, there's leaves, and every mountain biker's nemesis, acorns.
Oh wow, those are like little ball bearings, right?
Yeah, and they're hidden underneath the leaves.
Oh, that's a lot of them.
Just being aware that that our traction might not be the greatest in here. And also something that you might not have noticed had you not just like hopped off the bike and taken a look.
Right, right.
So we're continuing to come around. And now I come to here, a little bit of a technical section, and I have some options again. Got this rock, could just huck myself right off of this rock. But then that's right into a tree, and I got to make this right-hand turn here.
Yeah.
I got this this outside line here, a little bit smoother. Again, a little more gradual, but it is a little narrow. You do have to put your tire in a very specific spot, and then you're also kind of close to these trees. So those wide handlebars, you could definitely catch that on a tree if for some reason you got bounced off of your line. So that's an option. I'm going to rule out that huck off the rock.
So am I.
But then you can also kind of look at this and see there's this worn path here on the inside that's pretty flat, no roots or rocks to really navigate. You do have to be aware that off to the left side there is, the trail does drop back off. So staying nice and high on the right hand side here where it's nice and smooth looks to be the best option. So I get going, I'm gonna take the left line and then inside to the right. And we'll go off to the left. Then remember inside to the right. And then a nice smooth straightaway. The thing that I enjoy the most about teaching people to mountain bike is just getting them out and introducing them to something that they may, on onset think it's very hard or very out of their ability level, but showing them that if you just kind of take it slow, break it down, build some basics, that you can get out there. And it doesn't have to be, the hardest downhill trail at Attitash where you're pitching over the handlebars. It can be something mellow like we did today. What I like most about being in the North Conway area is that within like 20 minutes of the center of town, you can be into a variety of different adventures. You have mountain biking, there's skiing, there's hiking, there's excellent swimming spots. Echo Lake over here, you can go jump on a kayak, do paddle boarding, and it's a nice place to embrace kind of the multi-sport lifestyle, because when one thing isn't really going, like if it's wet out, probably not great to go rock climbing, but a day or so after a good rainstorm, it's the best time to go mountain biking. So yeah, just variety and just the ease of access here really makes it conducive to being multi-sport.
Whether you're a mountain biker, hiker, skier, snowmobiler, or snowshoer, you depend on trails to lead you through the landscape. Yet few people stop to consider how such trails come to exist and what it takes to keep them accessible. The White Mountains alone feature over 1,200 miles of trails, most managed by the National Forest Service. To keep such a vast network safe and viable year after year is a daunting and expensive task, which is where the White Mountain Trail Collective comes in.
White Mountain Trail Collective is a small nonprofit that works here in the White Mountains of New Hampshire for the most part. And our mission is right in our mission statement. It's to preserve the trails and protect the legacy of trail work here in the White Mountains. Professional trail work has been going on in these mountains for 100+ years at this point, and it is done by the Forest Service, state parks, many different nonprofit and conservation organizations like the Appalachian Mountain Club, the Randolph Mountain Club, Upper Saco Valley Land Trust, a bunch of different places like that. And all of those places have a backlog of work that needs to get done, anywhere from 10 to 15 years of trail maintenance that is needed, but doesn't necessarily get done in any given year. And so the Trail Collective works on a collective impact model. We bring together different crews, different funding sources, and we pick a different area of the forest to work in for 2 or 3 seasons. So right now we're in the Saco Ranger District for the White Mountains National Forest. So we're going to be working here at Cathedral Ledge. We were working over at the Cranmore Bike area. We worked up at Glen Ellis Falls. We work with those different partner organizations, the landowners, the conservation groups, and we ask them to submit proposals for work that needs to get done that they don't have the capacity to do in a given season. We look at those proposals and we decide what we think we can help with, and then we put together a fundraising effort to get funds to do those projects.
At Cathedral Ledge, Johan and his crew repaired and enhanced the trail that allows access to the cliff base by creating a series of stone stairs and reinforcing heavily eroded areas. The project involved quarrying granite blocks from a nearby talus slope and transporting them via a cable and grip hoist system to the site.
We were able to work with the National Forest Foundation and REI to put together a grant package that would allow us to fund this project. And so we ended up with, 3 different partners just to get it started. And then we brought in crews from the Appalachian Mountain Club, the White Mountain Trail Collective, the Access Fund, to get the actual work done.
So a lot goes into it, behind the scenes.
Yes, yeah. So in the end, there was representatives of 5 or 6 different organizations who are here either providing funding or actual physical labor getting this work done. The work that we did is a 100-year project. So we shouldn't have to be back here doing work on this trail for 100 years. So I grew up in Northwest Connecticut, which is a pretty rural part of the state of Connecticut, and spent most of my time as a child kind of running around in the woods, playing. There wasn't a whole lot else to do in the town where I grew up. And so we would go and hike and swim and run around, and then we started doing really, really sketchy rock climbing that probably shouldn't have survived, but thankfully did. And then kind of moved off to Chicago for college because I wanted to go to a city, and after 4 years of living in a city, I realized that's not what I wanted to do with my life. And so when I graduated from college, I just started looking for jobs that would take me to the mountains, and I found the trail crew at the Appalachian Mountain Club, and I thought, that'll be fun for 3 or 4 months. I'll do a summer, I'll figure out what I want to do with my life, and I stayed there for 3.5 years. So, that was kind of where I got into the trail work world. I've been climbing for 20 odd years. I've been hiking for a lot longer than that. So, this is, my work kind of ties right into my life, what I choose to do for recreation.
While the Cathedral Ledge project benefits hikers and climbers, other Trail Collective projects help preserve walking paths to scenic outlooks and historic sites, such as Glen Ellis Falls, a popular waterfall in the National Forest on the Upper Ellis River.
So to keep a trail maintained at a level 1 level, just the basic maintenance, usually we call that patrol season. And what that means is a crew of 4 or 5 people will go out onto a trail, and they'll take their axes and they'll take some hose for clearing drainages, and they'll go and they'll cut up all the trees that are laying in the trail, they'll clear all the drainages, and sometimes these folks are hiking for up to 15 miles a day just to clear one trail. So it's a lot of work that goes into just maintaining the trail for the season. The way I got into trail maintenance was through a program called Camp Dodge, and it is a volunteer trails program that takes children, usually aged 16 to 18. And that's how I got started doing a volunteer program. And after that, I knew I wanted to make trail work a part of my life. So I started with the AMC on their trail crews and did that for a while, and eventually decided I wanted something a little more permanent and found the Trails Collective, and I applied last spring and I luckily got the job. So here I am.
The Glen Ellis Falls Trail was originally built in the 1930s by professional stoneworkers under a Works Progress Administration program. In 2020, Allie's crew cleared drainage channels, rebuilt retaining walls, filled sinkholes, and made parts of the path wheelchair accessible. Tell me about this area here that you guys worked on.
So this section, when we first got here, was washed out because of all this drainage right here.
Yeah, I can see the gully or whatever it was.
Yeah, and there was actually a big boulder sitting right in the middle of the trail. But we wanted to make this more accessible for people in wheelchairs or who might have a tough time walking. So we were able to split up the rock and actually use it in this section of retaining wall. Oh, I grew up hiking. My dad would carry me in a backpack when I was a baby. And then even as young as first grade, we were hiking as a family. And that had a huge impact on me as a kid and made the outdoors somewhere I really loved and somewhere I really wanted to go. And I really wanted to bring other people into that. So that's a big part of why I love what I do.
Watching the Ellis River gather steam as it tumbled over boulders, my mind wandered downstream to where visions of trout began to swirl and eddy. And I knew just the person to enlist for a fly fishing excursion. Autumn in the White Mountains is always spectacular, even if you're content to simply experience it from the seat of a car. But when you combine the fall foliage with the equally exquisite colors of a spawning brook trout, well, that's taking things to a whole new level. Helping fly fishermen experience the thrill of catching trout in the local freestone rivers and streams of central New Hampshire is Steve Angers, owner of North Country Angler, a premier fly shop in North Conway. Steve is the fifth owner of the venerable shop, and he calls the surrounding waters in the area the best kept secret in New Hampshire fly fishing.
If you want to fish for wild brook trout, you can fish for wild brook trout. If you want to fish for stocked brook trout, stocked rainbow trout, and stocked brown trout, the state of New Hampshire does a fantastic job of putting all three of those species in our major rivers. And if you like to catch really big trout, the brown trout actually hold over in the Saco River, and we have brown trout up to 30 inches, which matches brown trout from anywhere across the country.
When I heard that, I was hooked. So in early October, I met Steve for a chance to fish the Ellis River, which flows for some 16 miles from its source on Mount Washington to its confluence with the Saco River and holds brook brown and rainbow trout. We started out just below the Goodrich Falls Dam, a good spot to find brook trout that were making their way upriver to spawn. The presence of brookies is heavily dependent on water levels, as the fish won't move upstream until after a heavy rainfall. In our case, the river was somewhat low, although we still managed to pull a beautiful brookie from the deep, dark pool.
The White Mountains is just one of the most, beautiful places on the planet. And because of the White Mountain National Forest that protects over 400,000 acres worth of land from being developed, it will always be a beautiful place to be on the planet. From the early 1800s, even the late 1700s, this has been the place that the people from cities, Boston, Portland, Providence, Hartford, came to the White Mountains to recreate, and it hasn't changed at all. It's still the place where the people from the major cities come to do their recreation, and that's why fishing is a piece of the overall recreational package that's here in the White Mountains.
The mill pond directly above the dam and just below the Route 16 bridge, known as Timmy's Bridge, also holds trout in the fall, and we notice several fish sipping emerging insects from the surface. Getting them to eat our imitations proved quite another matter. Our last stop was the stretch of river below the covered bridge in Jackson. While this postcard landmark makes a scenic backdrop to a fly fishing excursion, you're better off searching farther downstream to find less heavily fished parts of the river.
I got into fly fishing when I was 10 years old, and I had been a trout fisherman since 6 years old. And my dad got into the fly fishing, and he was my fishing buddy. And so from the time I was 10, I switched over from bait fishing to fly fishing. And then when I was 12, my father bought me my first fly tying kit, and I started tying my own flies, and I've been tying my own flies since I was 12. So it's been an all-encompassing passion for me.
Pocket water fishing involves drifting a nymph fly through the fast water between boulders. The trout will normally be looking for food in the protected, slower water behind the rocks, as well as along the current seams. Once you make a few short drifts, it's time to move to the next pocket. The Ellis offers pocket water fishing at its finest, and it's amazing how the trout will hold in just a few inches of water, unseen to all but the trained eye of an experienced angler.
What I love about fly fishing is being outdoors and being on the water. I mean, there's really nothing that lowers my blood pressure like standing in a stream, feeling the water go by, watching a trout rise to a fly, and then trying to figure out the puzzle and getting that fish to rise to my fly. There's just nothing else on the planet that I've ever experienced that is equal to that.
After picking a few pockets on the Ellis, Steve and I climbed back in his truck and returned to his shop. While the fishing was slow by most people's standards, simply catching a few trout amid the beautiful backdrop of autumn leaves was reward enough, and reason enough to return to the White Mountains next fall.